Welcome back to another episode of The Writers' Room. I'm your host, Landon Bethea, and joining me today is Ben Hutchison. How you doing today?
Landon, I'm doing well. There's nowhere I'd rather be on a Wednesday afternoon than right here in the O'Colly studio.
Yeah, the days start to kind of blend together as the week goes on, but I'm also happy to be here to discuss some cowboy and cowgirl sports. We'll start off with cowgirl basketball because they just got a new coach, which is big for the program. So you cover cowgirl basketball, so take us through last year and maybe why we're maybe seeing a new coach this year.
Yeah, maybe that's why my days are running together. It's been a busy last couple of days covering this cowgirl team. But Landon, last year, this 2021-2022 season, 9-20 overall, a significant drop off from their previous years, where they made the NCAA tournament, just the season prior, and only 3-15 in conference play. So it got pretty rough for the Cowgirls this season. I don't think just one season is why the 2020 Coach of the Year, Jim Littell, was fired. There's a lot of issues with recruiting specifically. I look at in the last 10 seasons, Cowgirls have only had 7 top 100 players, and a lot of those higher rated recruits are from 2013 and 2012. So yes, had a bad season this year, but there's also a lot of larger picture stuff. I think it was just time for a change.
Yeah, it was a tough year shooting for the Cowgirls, and you bring in a coach, like you said. There's a 2020 Western Conference. She was the coach of her conference in 2020. So they bring her over. They look to bring a new mindset to cowgirl basketball, maybe a winning mindset. She went 23-9. So as she comes in, what do you think the future may look like? And you talked about the recruiting issues. Do you think we may see some improvements there? What do you expect to see?
I do. So J.C. Hoyt is the new coach of the Cowgirls. She comes in after 5 seasons at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Has some Big 12 experience too. Spent some time at K-State and also Nevada. Now, you mentioned the new style of play. In her press conference on Monday, she said she wants to get out and shoot. She's a fast-paced coach. Loves to get out and run. Talk to some of her assistants, her siblings. She's an offensive coach. She's a player's coach. I think that could be maybe sort of the change in philosophy or style of the Cowgirl team going into this next season.
Well, speaking of players, OSU lost their leading scorer, or possibly, as she entered the transfer portal recently. Lauren Fields averaged over 15 points per game last season. Didn't shoot the ball particularly great, but was the lifeline of the Cowboys. So now that she may be gone, or it looks like she will be gone, how can we expect a new coach to come in here, losing the team's best player, and put up a productive season?
That's exactly right. She was the best player. Her shooting, not great, but that's not what Lauren Fields did. She was a first-class defender, Cowgirls' top defender, led the team in steals, always drew the toughest assignment. She did pour in 15.4 points a game, and she played almost 35 minutes a game. So she didn't come off the floor, and she was guarding their best player. Hoyt, recruiting has been a strong suit of hers. In her most recent kind of recruiting victory I can remember, we're talking about the University of Missouri, Kansas City. She got a player to flip from Louisiana State to Missouri, Kansas City. That's pretty good. Hoyt's good in the transfer portal. I expect that's where she's going to really go hard to get a team ready to compete next season, because I don't know how much time she's going to have to develop, some players, especially, seeing if Fields. I don't think she's going to be the only player to leave in the portal. I think Hoyt's going to have to hit the transfer portal hard.
And you saw that a lot from cowboy basketball this past season, where we had to hit the transfer portal hard after losing our best player, Kate Cunningham. So you saw a season of struggle. And obviously there was a lot of things that went on in the offseason for cowboy basketball. But losing a top-tier player, or your best player, it's big. It's hard. It's hard to recover from. And so now you get a new coach. You're not going to have your best player. Second in scoring this year was Lexi Key. What can we expect from her going into next season, you think?
Yeah, Lexi Keys, she's going to be a shooter. She's going to camp out in the corner and get buckets from there. She had a really good freshman season. This season she was expected to kind of take a little bit of a jump. I think she struggled in some senses trying to adapt to that bigger role. But as you said, Cowgirls lost their best player. It'll be interesting to see how the team reacts to that. They've been through it before. This isn't the first time in recent memory the Cowgirls have lost their best player. A year ago, it was Natasha Mack, the leading scorer, went to the WNBA draft. In the year prior to that, the Cowgirls' leading scorer, Vivian Gray, transferred to Texas Tech. So the Cowgirls have been through it before. J.C. Hoyt hasn't. It'll be interesting to see how Hoyt, manages to go through this next season without her best player, but it's certainly something the Cowgirls are familiar with.
Well, the Cowgirls just saw their first losing season since 2018 and 2019, and that season they went 14-16, so a lot better than 9-20. And next year, it's going to be tough to bounce back from this with a new coach. But Lexi Key is one of our shooters. Like J.C. Hoyt said, she wants to shoot, she wants to get out, and she wants to be energetic. I expect to see this Cowgirl basketball team have a big year and bounce back. But the question is now that you have shooters, are you going to be – shooters don't succeed without somebody to facilitate to those shooters. Mm-hmm. So who can we expect to maybe step into that role?
Yeah, talking about a point guard – Fields, she ran a lot of point last season. She's gone, obviously. I look at someone like Micah Dennis, a player who, she could be one of those names, potentially to enter the transfer portal. Certainly has the talent. She's, a player who could take over a lot of those minutes that Fields played. I expect Micah Dennis to probably be the clubhouse leader right now in terms of the next point guard.
Well, looking ahead, we now look into J.C. Hoyt's stretch here. We look into a point where it could be promising because we look at her back in her past season in Kansas City with the Roos. She had a 81-65 record as a head coach. Like I said, last season she went 23-9, and she has 4 20-win seasons. So a lot of winning for J.C. Hoyt, a lot of success under her belt. So as she comes into this season with losing seasons in the past, we look ahead. And the hope for OSU Cowgirl basketball is probably pretty high right now. What can you say to that, to the students around here who are trying to get involved? What can you say to them going into Cowgirl basketball?
I'll say to the students, Hoyt mentioned you in her press conference. She said she wants to get the students involved, knows how important those people are to, establishing a culture and getting people in the building. So students, they're going to be a wanted part of this whole environment. And I think the hope in this whole thing kind of lies in the energy Hoyt has. After a long tenure for Coach Littell, maybe all they needed was a change. Maybe sometimes you just need a different voice in that locker room, just something different. And I think Hoyt's definitely going to provide that. She has so much energy, a lot of passion. She really hits the recruiting game hard. I expect kind of the energy and the feel for this Cowgirl team to, get a lot of fans to believe that something has changed.
Well, getting the fans to believe something has changed will be a hard thing to do, but I believe J.C. Hoyt is up for the test. And now, after looking at Cowboy basketball, we're going to send it down to the archive room where Dylan Walker will be talking about OSU golf.
I'm Kristen Hawkins. I went to Oklahoma State University here in Stillwater in 99 to 2004. I've always felt like Stillwater needed more family-friendly things to do, and we have opened up AR Workshop. We do everything from knitting blankets that can be done in a 3-hour class. We create doormats and porch signs, the Christmas wreaths with our yarn that we use for the blankets. We also do, we just started a new project for gnomes. We've done pumpkins during the fall, but our big thing that we do here are interior signs. Our designs are extremely unique to AR Workshop. Customers come in, everything is here for them to do. They create everything. They can be as hands-on as they want. They came in here to relax and have fun, and that they are proud of their project that they've made.
Well, how I got started was my daughter said, "Mama, why don't we rent a booth at the Quarter Horse Show?" And it was very, very good because, when you're giving your jelly away for free, people really do love it. But when you ask them to pay for it, then that's a true test. What makes my product so unique is the Scotch bonnet pepper. And the Scotch bonnet is the Jamaican pepper. And I had lived in Montego Bay, Jamaica for 4 years. So I learned how to handle the pepper and how to cook with it. I always say, you don't do this on your own. I mean, you have so many people that help you along the way. For me and for many of us, that's my name on that jar, and it better be good.
Hey everyone, my name's Dylan Walker. I'm here with Ocali Editor-in-Chief Chris Becker, and we are going to be talking about everything OSU golf today. Thank you for joining me, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's start off with the men's teams. They just finished up the NIT in Tucson. Give us a little insight on their performance this past week.
Yeah, so contrary to popular belief, the OSU basketball team, not in the NIT, the golf team was. So they won by a lot, and it really was not close. They beat, I think second place was number 2 OU, or number 1 OU. OSU's ranked number 2. OSU set a course record, or a tournament record with lowest score. And Eugenio Shikara, he's ranked number 3 in the PGA University rankings. He top 10 world amateur ranking, and he's been on a tear lately. I think 12 of his 15 rounds in the spring have been sub 70, which is insane. And he was on a stretch of 9 straight before their tournament before the NIT, and then in the tournament General Hackler, he shot 3 rounds above 70 and then shot 3 more rounds under 70 this week, and shot 20 under for the tournament, broke the tournament record individually. So they broke 2 records, and they came back with 2 champions. So
yeah, that's
insane. Two straight tournaments that they've had the individual champion, and I don't think they've finished worse than 4th place this year.
If I'm not mistaken, this is actually his second first place individual win and their 3rd team first place win.
I believe so, yeah.
So Eugenio is exceptional. He's won Big 12 Golfer of the Month for February from the Big 12. Do you see him potentially coming out of OSU and being the next, say, Victor Hovland or Matt Wolff?
Yeah, I think he could come out immediately and succeed. This is his final year of eligibility at OSU, 2nd year overall at OSU after transferring from Wake Forest. And he's ranked number 3 in the PGA University rankings, which is important because that's a new ranking system, 2nd year ever. And the top 5 get automatic acceptance into the Korn Ferry Tour season next season. So he'll immediately, after his senior year, so in May, after the NCAA tournament, he'll go and he'll immediately start playing on the Korn Ferry and start earning points towards the Korn Ferry finals, which will then either get him a Korn Ferry card for next season or a PGA card if he's lucky.
Wow.
So he could immediately make an impact, and he definitely has what it takes to be up there with Victor Hovland. Matt Wolff was good 1 year, and he's kind of struggled this year, but he has what it takes to be the next golfer out of OSU to be really good. And he'll join Austin Eckroat over on the Korn Ferry at the end of this year.
Okay, cool. Good to know. So I know Bojan has also been a standout recently, especially last year. He had a great season. We haven't seen as much of a strong performance out of him so far this year, but is there anyone, including him, that you think that once Chikara is gone, that's going to kind of fill that role?
Yeah, so Bo has been in and out of the lineup. Same with Aman Gupta, who are both NCAA championship starters last year on the 3rd place team. And they kind of came into the year. They didn't play a lot. Aman had been out of the lineup for a long time. And coach just told me it's kind of the thing where it was just they're getting back into it, and they've been in and out, and he's just kind of toying with the lineup a lot. There's been very little consistency besides Eugenio and Brian Stark. And Brian Stark will come back next year, so he'll probably be the 1 bag next year. And then it'll probably be Bo, him, and then Rasmus Niergaard Peterson has had a really good year this season. He won the General Hackler individually, had a really good tournament this week, or last week, I guess. And he's been coming on strong. He finished top 20, I think, at a Korn Ferry event last season also, and he wasn't even starting last year. So that was impressive in and of itself. And they have a lot of depth on this team. Jordan Wilson's a true freshman from Edmond. He played individually with in one of the tournaments. He was unattached from the team, but he played really well in his first tournament at OSU. So there's a lot of depth and a lot of brightness on this team after Eugenio leaves.
So you touched on the fact that they ended up getting 3rd in the NCAA championships last year. How do you think that this current team has their performances in comparison to previous teams?
Yeah, I think this team on paper is a little it doesn't look as bright and doesn't look as flashy as last year when they had Eugenio and Austin Eckroat and Brian Stark and Bojan and Aman Gupta, who are all playing exceptional at the end of the year. But I think it's going to come down to them and OU. OSU fans are going to say that they should think OSU should be number 1 after last week's tournament. But in golf, it's a week-by-week thing, and OU's been dominant. And OSU really, they've been around top 3, top 4, but OU has been absolutely dominant. Chris Gotterup on their team is incredible, and it's going to be a PGA star one day. And I think he was in contention to win a Korn Ferry event last week. So
oh wow,
that's just, OU's dominant, but it's going to come down to those two, I think. And OSU's, OSU has struggled in match play, which is ironic because Mike Holder, former AD and former golf coach, is the reason match plays in the NCAA tournament. That's a whole other topic for another day. But they struggled in that in Alan Bratton's tenure recently. They won in 2018, and since then they've kind of been up and down in match play. That's what did them in last year. They were really good in stroke play, did it in match play last year, and I think the championship match is going to be OU OSU, depending on how they do match play and stroke play. But I think those two teams are by far 1-2, and then there's a gap.
Right. I was looking last night actually. So as of right now on golfstat.com, OU is currently number 1, OSU is number 2, but then there's 3 other teams from the Big 12 in the top 25. How do you see OSU kind of as the program as a whole standing within the Big 12?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think OU and OSU are the favorites to go to the national championship match, and I think OU is probably the favorite in the Big 12 just because of how dominant they've been and how deep that team is. But match play is a different animal, but Big 12 doesn't have match play. So I think OSU is probably a 1-2 in the Big 12, and Texas is right up there behind them. They have Pearson Coody, who is exceptional at golf also. He's number 2 in the PGA University rankings above Eugenio, and had been number 1 for a while before getting hopped by, I think, Logan McAllister maybe, or somebody else, an A&M golfer. And so those 3 teams are probably 1, 2, 3 easy. OSU beat them on the 18th hole with a Bo Jin putt last year in the Big 12. Beat Texas. And so it's going to be a close one again, but the Big 12 golf is just on a different level.
Okay, so they're headed now to Augusta this coming weekend, I believe, the 2nd and the 3rd. But how do you see their performance coming up?
Yeah, I think this team, I feel bad for the golfers, really. They play a very competitive championship level schedule up till it's not. I mean, it's a grind every week. And unfortunately, this is the Augusta Invitational, but I don't think it's at Augusta National, which kind of stinks. But I know they have the Masters coming up, so they don't want people playing on it. But it's a very big tournament. I think OU's in the field, possibly. I know they were last year, and normally these events that are pretty big in the college golf realm don't change fields very often. It's always the top 20. There are a lot of top 25 teams in them, and so it's going to be a challenging field again. But if Eugenio keeps playing like he does, and then Bo and Amin find their stride, or Brian Stark steps up a little bit, he's kind of been middle of the pack all season. If these guys can start hitting their stride right about now, this is about the time of the season where you kind of need to kick into gear and get rolling down the hill towards May.
Yeah, I agree. I know it's coming up soon. It'll be here before they know it. I'm sure.
The race to Greyhawk.
Yes. Okay, so now let's kind of move over to the women's side of the program.
The more fun side.
Yes. So far they just came off the tournament hosted by both Missouri and Kansas State. How would you assess their performance?
Well, individually it was really strong, and team-wise it was really strong also. But the fact they finished 3rd place and keep finishing 3rd place or better after losing 2 of their best golfers is incredible. It shows how deep this team is, and it keeps showing how deep this team is. Han Swan Yu hadn't been in the lineup until I think 3 tournaments ago, and didn't at all in the fall when they won all 4 of their tournaments. And all of a sudden she's competing week in, week out at these events for individual honors. And she did again this week. She got 3rd place, I think. Madison Hinton-Tolchard also was up there. They both broke individual personal records for their time at OSU, and I think this team has the ability to compete like they did last year. I don't think they're the favorites anymore like they were literally 2 weeks ago, but I think they still have the chance if everything goes right. Their team is deep, and Rina Tamatsu hadn't played in the spring event in a while, and she was their number 3 bag last year. So this team's really deep, and so it's gonna be better, I think.
I agree. I think that they've progressed a lot from the start of the season until now, but I'll ask you again, where do you see them fitting into the Big 12 lineup?
I think in the Big 12 wise, they're probably the favorite.
Okay.
Just because other teams have kind of fallen off, and they are still really, really talented. However, if there's one team to beat them, it's going to be Texas Tech, who is ironically coached by Greg Robertson's sister. So it's a little family rivalry there. But Texas Tech, I believe, in the spring at least, every time Texas Tech and OSU has been in the same tournament, Texas Tech has beat them.
Okay.
But OSU's finished no worse than 3rd at all in the whole season, including the fall, and I think it's on a streak of 3 straight 3rd place finishes. So they're on the podiums, and they're getting close. It's just the final round keeps killing them each week. So they can figure out the final round and get the lineup figured out, then it'll be good.
I know you and Hinton Tolchard were really big competitors, not necessarily against each other, but they were close in all their scores. Do you think that we're going to continue to see that for the rest of the season out of those two?
You and Tolchard haven't been really good. Tolchard is going to be the one that she's the one back now after Isabella and McGinty have departed. But you've kind of been in that 4 or 5 range where she's kind of on the in and out of the lineup. But she's been competing the last 2. She won 2 weeks ago. I think she could compete with Tolchard each week. She is a senior. I think her and Liana are the lone seniors on the team. And between her, Liana, and Tolchard, I think that's a pretty good 1-2-3 punch.
Yeah.
And then you have Clements Martin, a true freshman, and then that 5th spot's been rotated between everyone on the roster. So I think it's gonna be a really good race to the finish there.
Yeah, I agree. And so now I know next they're headed down to Lubbock on Sunday and Monday for the Red Raider match play. You had mentioned that Tech is kind of their number 2 competitor. How do you see it playing out?
Well, this team's been really good in match play. And that was shown at Greyhawk last year when they got 2nd place. And I think this team could compete in match play events just because it's more of an individual race more than a team and overall score. So it's just got to beat your person each hole. I think they could win. I think it's again coming down to Texas Tech and OSU and who can win. But match play, that's a tough one. I personally don't think it's the best way to determine the best team. But it'll be an interesting thing to see if they can finally get one back against the Red Raiders, and it's a good thing to see who they're going to play up against in Big 12s and probably eventually the national championships.
I agree. Well, I think that we're almost coming out of time, but thank you again for sitting down with me today, and then we're going to send it back to Landon, Ben, and Sam up in the studio.
Ace in the Bowl salsa started many, many years ago. I was trying to find a recipe to take to a family gathering, and so I started messing around with different recipes, and I took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and I came up with a salsa that is truly unique. Ace in the Bowl salsa is an olive oil-based salsa with tomatoes, green chilies, green onions, and black olives. There's no sugar added, it's gluten-free, low calorie, low carb, low fat, low sodium. So it's a very, very, very good alternative to any snack you may want. As of right now, I'm just looking to be in Oklahoma and having a successful business within the state. If my grandkids could ever take it over when they're old enough, that would be my dream.
Thanks, Dylan. And after discussing OSU golf, we now go into OSU baseball. And if you liked last segment, well, you're going to love this one because I've got 2 Hutchinsons next to me. I've got Ben and Sam. Now, how are you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great. I love talking sports with my twin. I talk a lot of sports with my twin, so I also love talking to new people. And what's better than talking sports?
I agree. There's not much better than talking sports. Well, you cover softball, correct?
That's right.
And you're primarily covering baseball, correct?
We're different in some ways. Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
I guess so. That's a difference.
Well, we're going to start out with baseball, so I'll throw you some of the first questions. And we look into baseball right now. Big 12 play is just about to start. And we just OSU came off of a 4-0 sweep of Seton Hall. So take me through that. Who were the key players? What is OSU doing well right now? What could they work on? What might need to be the answers heading into the season?
I'm going to add a big disclaimer and say that the 4-0 sweep was against a Seton Hall team that wasn't that great. At least by their record, they've played a lot of Power 5 opponents, had some big losses, like Florida State. They're not going out there and just bombing against nobody. But Seton Hall didn't have an impressive record, and that continued in those 4 losses to Oklahoma State. My mind, goes back to really OSU scoring a bunch of runs in the early innings. In the last 2 games, they scored runs in the first 5 innings. So they were getting on them, and at some point, Seton Hall would jump back and fight back a little bit, but it's already too much. Seton Hall just didn't have the firepower to keep up with OSU.
Well, it's 14-6 so far on the season. OSU has done a great job of taking care of business, but a 7-game win streak, so at some point this season, OSU was sitting at 7-6. So it's not all been glory this season. So Sam, talk about what you cover and what your experience with OSU baseball. What do you expect from this team?
Yeah, I mean, this team, I'll say, in my experience with the team, everyone talks about the consistency, right? How Josh Holiday always brings teams into the regionals, super regionals. It's a consistent team. And I guess we'll just take last couple of years, we haven't seen so much of that. So this team came in with a lot of promise, a lot of high rankings. This team has been in the top 10 all season. I think they're sitting at number 4 right now. So when you look at the Cowboys, you're like, is this the year they can put it together? They have players, new players like Griffin Dorshing that you expect to come in and kind of provide some power, especially with the loss of Christian Encarnacion Strand, who had some huge power for the team last year and was drafted in the MLB. So I guess I've been looking forward to seeing what new players like Griffin Dorshing, he'll be back from a foot injury soon, and along with the returning players that have helped this team be so consistent in years past, like Jake Thompson, and Nolan McLean. So this is kind of a put up or shut up year a little bit for Oklahoma State. See if they can get back to their record, their reputation of being a consistent postseason performance team.
We brought up Jake Thompson there, and he's earned himself the nickname Jake Rakes, and he has been phenomenal this season. A .410 batting average speaks for itself, but there's a lot of hot bats on this OSU lineup. Take us through some of them, maybe walk us through our leaders, our stat leaders, maybe home run leaders, because we have Nolan McLean, and you have guys hitting in the 300s all the way around, so take us through that.
Yeah, Jake Thompson leads this team, far and away the hottest bat. Griffin Dorshing got off to a great start. Broke his foot. Not technically broke his foot, had a foot injury. So that was something really devastating for a lot of Cowboy fans. Is you wonder and hope if Griffin Dorshing can get back to what he was doing before his injury. Trinkle, he's been off and on with his bat. Caden Trinkle, the center fielder. You can't take him out of the lineup though because of how good he's been in the field. Lots of diving catches and stuff. I look at Marcus Brown, a player who gets on base a lot. He's gotten off to a fairly solid start. The most interesting bat I think in this lineup is Nolan McLean. Sam mentioned him, a guy who was really good last year, came on strong at the end of the season, and then this season has just been in sort of a funk. McLean hits .247 right now, and that's boosted a little bit by his last game, which I really want to get into. Like I said, he'd been in a slump, has 33 Ks against 10 walks. And, we saw him in the dugout against Seton Hall, struck out, went back to dugout, kicked down a chair. It was kind of weighing on this guy a little bit, I could tell. Last game, 2 hits, 1 walk, and one of these hits isn't even qualifiable as a hit. It was a tank into right field, Oppo Taco home run. I look, at McLean as one of those guys who can get hot and is the most interesting guy to follow.
Well, a powerful bat and a bat that can get hot, but inconsistent right now. And we head into Big 12 play in college baseball. And OSU riding a hot streak into the Big 12 play, but could use a hot bat from McLean to get going. Mm-hmm. So with that bat getting going and the offensive side perhaps being taken care of, we'll flip to the defensive side of the ball where Justin Campbell, the pitcher for the OSU Cowboys right now and one of the top prospects of the upcoming MLB standings, he has got a 2.15 ERA right now, and that's pretty special. So take me through. I'll start here with Ben. Excuse me, real quick. That's very difficult with two twins sitting on both of my sides. But I'll start here with Ben. Talk about Justin Campbell for a little bit.
Justin Campbell last year, he didn't have the pressure. He came in as like a late ad. Who went to was going to go to Tulane, kind of late ad, not going to be the guy. Well, he emerged as the guy. Through some injuries last year, he took on a really prominent role, and stayed at OSU, came back, and Justin Campbell has had a lot of pressure. He was the number 1 starter against Vanderbilt. Opened up that Friday game, got the loss there. Didn't play too poorly, but got the loss. But has since really, really been strong. He's the leader of the staff. In all the ways that Nolan McLean has been struggling with that strikeout to walk ratio, Campbell's the opposite. 49 Ks to only 9 walks. I think part of what's maybe helped him is he doesn't have a bat in his hands. Last year he was doing that switch pitching, not switch pitching, but he was playing both ways. That's a lot. He's talked about the strain it kind of has on you. Campbell, with the way he's just pitching, has more focus on that, and it's been really successful.
Well, pitching and hitting is very difficult on both sides of the ball, and you would think that taking away the bat would elevate his focus on the defensive side, but he did start out the season a little shaky. It wasn't by no means was it a bad performance, but it could have been better. Except he's recorded double-digit strikeouts in his last 3 games. So not only are the Cowboys getting hot right now as a team, but Campbell's getting hot, and that's pretty big heading into Big 12 play. Mm-hmm. So as we do head into Big 12 play, and I believe they open up the season against Kansas. Thank you. They open up against Kansas. What do you expect, Sam, in that series?
I mean, I think anytime you go into conference play, you're not only looking at the starters, but the relief pitching as well. I mean, we talked about Justin Campbell. Tough start against Vanderbilt to open the season, but then again, that's Vanderbilt. That's one of the best teams in the season. And then his ERA has declined while playing against even worse teams like Seton Hall and going down the list. So I think we'll find that happy medium in Big 12 play of truly being able to evaluate the Pokes and find out where they are. Are they the team that can beat Vanderbilt in a season series like they did to start the year, or are they a team that, as we saw at times, almost lost a couple games to Seton Hall, a team that last I checked had maybe 1 or 2 wins? So I think we'll find that happy medium. The reality is the Cowboys are a top 5 team in the country, and they've looked very good at times this season. I think the Cowboys will. I think they'll get some wins against teams like Kansas, and I'm really excited to see them play against quality teams like Texas and TCU and so forth. So I'm almost looking at kind of the barometer of finally getting to see where this team sits against teams that they could run up to in the postseason. So I'm excited to see where Big 12 play, how this team responds to it.
Well, Cowboys have a lot on their hands in baseball, but we will take it to the other field right now where we will talk about Cowgirl softball, and they are also off to a very hot start. So let's talk about Cowgirl softball, and Sam is the guy to ask about the softball question. So Sam, tell us about the season so far and what you've seen that you liked and what you've seen that you still have some to be left desired.
That's right. Much like the other side of the street at O'Brate Stadium, this Cowgirl softball team came in this season with a lot of expectations, a lot of hype, and it wasn't because of who returned, but who they got in the transfer portal, because the Cowgirls lost a lot of players from their last season's College World Series appearance, but they gained people to stagnate those differences, cancel them out. The biggest ad on the team was pitcher Miranda Ellish. She's a senior grad transfer coming in. She's pitched at 2 different schools, and 2 years ago, she was voted the Softball America Player of the Year, like NBA MVP, NFL MVP, that level. She was voted at by Softball America because of her lockdown pitching. So she's been one of the biggest ads. We've seen two true freshmen come in and play exceptionally well and really get this Cowgirl team to a spot where, from what I've seen, I think they can make it back to the College World Series. I think they're better, if not, I think they're as good, if not better, than what we had last year, what we saw. So, yeah, Kenny Gajewski called it. Coach Kenny Gajewski, he called it his most talented team ever, and now his goal is to get it to his most successful team ever. He's stressed the difference there, so it'll be interesting to see.
High praise there for the most talented team ever, and I like that. I think that's pretty cool. He's going to try to say, hey, we've got the talent, but we've got to succeed with the talent. And so, Ben, I want to give you a chance to touch on softball. I know your brother's the guy who covers it, but what have you seen so far that you've liked or disliked?
Yeah, certainly follow it, from certainly more of an outside perspective, but I live with Sam. We always talk about sports, including a lot of Cowgirl softball. And the thing that's most impressed me is kind of the settling in of Ellish, the player Sam talked about, the pitcher. She started out, a little shaky. Her first couple pitching performances kind of left Cowgirl fans saying, hey, is this the same pitcher? Is this really the girl who was so good at Texas and Oregon before that? Is this really, the girl who has all the promises? And now we're starting to see why. She has that a no-hitter last week, two back-to-back Big 12 pitcher of the week. Miranda Ellish is really starting to settle in, and that's on top of Kelly Maxwell, the already returner. She's expected to really lead this team, and Ellish, alongside that. It'll be interesting to see how the dynamic emerges with Maxwell being the person, the start of the season. I'm curious to see, what the emergence of Ellish is going to look like and how those two, end up potentially pitching some big series down the line together.
Well, you brought up Maxwell, and Maxwell is 9-0 on the season, 69 innings pitched.
Yep.
She has been consistent, to say the least, all year. So I'll bring it back to you, Sam. Let's touch on Maxwell a little bit. And what have you seen from her? Obviously, she's been great, but can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, that's right. She's been incredible, Kelly Maxwell has. Now, she told me at the start of the year, right, last year, she was the number 2 pitcher behind Carrie Eberle, and Carrie Eberle graduated. So Kelly Maxwell came into this season knowing she had to be the ace. That was kind of her role expected. And in the offseason, she really took that to heart. Last year, she pitched primarily a rise ball. That was her go-to pitch, often led her arsenal. Now, in the offseason, she added a drop ball. So she's really rolling with those 2 pitches on top of some other pitches to add to her arsenal. And, some of the players I talked to, just the Cowgirls who've seen her in practice, said that she's pitching better than ever. And like you said, I think the stats certainly go to reflect that. So, yeah, what I've seen from the offensive side is this Cowgirl team still led by Kelly Maxwell, but a very strong emergence from Miranda Elish in that 2 spot, with Morgan Day kind of filling in a transfer from Illinois State in the reliever role. These 3 pitchers, they seem to be able to get Oklahoma City, or to get OSU to Oklahoma City in another College World Series. I think they have the firepower. It's kind of just starting to come together.
Well, you're talking about the future. You're talking about Omaha. Big things, and that all those things require a bullpen.
That's right.
And so the Cowboys have that. But we flip it to the plate, and the offensive side. Caitlin Carwile, having a great season. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, she's been great. She's a sophomore and didn't even play that much last year. But Kenny Gajewski, one of the main things he preaches is responsibility. And even if you batted 300 last year and you hit home runs, he said this roster is too deep to have people that are really struggling and just not putting in the effort. And one of the players that's been the benefactor is Caitlin Carwile. She's come on really strong this year for the Cowgirls, starting most games in right field, and her bat has been on fire. She gets on base one of the most out of every player. She's hitting for mainly singles, doubles, but she has hit for some power, and she's been a good fielder as well. So that combined with Brianna Evans, a true freshman who was batting against high school players last year, but she's hitting 400 for the Cowgirls in a leadoff role. And that was kind of another flash of unexpected potential for this roster to get an upgrade. Is the Cowgirls have their leadoff hitter who wasn't on the team last year, and she's batting just over 400. There was a series against Minnesota. She batted 9 times in a doubleheader and did not get out. So her on-base percentage is incredible, and those 2 players, Carwile and Brianna Evans, have really come on to add some punch to the Cowgirl lineup.
Well, Brianna Evans, Carwile, and I would even go further, even to say Juliana Cottrill, who's been having a good season. 8 home runs on the year, 22 RBIs. The bats are there for the Cowgirls. And so I'll swing it over to Ben. The bats are there. The pitching's there. Should we be hopeful of this team? Should OSU Cowboy fans be hopeful of this team? What do you think?
I say, why not? Coach G has done it. Coach G took the Cowgirls far into OKC last season, and the recipe is there. The talent is there, and I think Coach G is going to be able to put all these pieces together. This is a team I see only getting better as the season goes on. Sam talked all about the young players right now. Well, the reality is they're only in their first 15, 20 games of college softball. So I want to see what these girls are going to look like with their 30th and 35th games of college softball. It's a new feel to the Cowgirls, as you said. Cottrill and Evans kind of replacing some of those older veteran names on the team that the fans are going to really identify and know. But I want to see what this new feel, what this new unit is going to look like when they have even more time together. I would say there's a pretty good shot that this team gets better and advances into OKC. Yeah, there's a detail I missed that I forgot to tell you. I mentioned Kenny Gajewski said this was his most talented team ever, and he said that was in his experience as a coach. And what some fans don't know is before coming to Oklahoma State, Kenny Gajewski had won 2 national championships at Florida. So he was including those rosters in his assessment of his most talented team ever, and he said it's this one this year. We'll see if it all pans out. There's some players that maybe have the talent that haven't been batting so well. Morgan Wynn, shortstop Kylie Naomi, their averages are down from where they were last year, and they're kind of in slumps. So I'm not saying it's been all positive for Oklahoma State, but that's where its depth. The depth of this team has really shown when you have a player that's batting 250, you're going to take him out because you have a 300 hitter on your bench. So it's an impressive arsenal that the Cowgirls have, and we'll see if they're able to put it together.
Well, we've seen a lot of impressive things from them, like you guys have highlighted. We then look into Big 12 play again with softball now, and the OSU Cowgirls will be playing on March 25th. They will have a 4-game series against Texas Tech at Cowgirl Stadium to open up Big 12 play. So what are the things, and I'll start off here with Sam, what are the things that you're expecting to see in those first couple games as they start their Big 12 play?
One thing I'm expecting to see is how the pitching staff, I guess I'll say I'm excited to see exactly how the pitching staff shakes out. I expect it to go Kelly Maxwell and then Miranda Ellish to be the 1-2 pitchers, but then this is where it gets a little interesting because on that third game, softball, it's quite common to pitch your ace again in that third game. The fatigue on arms isn't the same in softball, and you can often pitch a player just one day after they started. So I'll be interested to see if Kenny Gajewski goes to Kelly Maxwell, the ace of this team, or if he has enough faith in someone like Morgan Day, who has pitched a ton of great innings at Illinois State, has shown the ability to be a really good pitcher for OSU. If he wants to go there too, how exactly he wants to treat the conference schedule, if he wants to treat it more like, hey, we're going to get this team innings and prepare even more for the postseason, or if he wants to treat it like a postseason where, hey, we're going to try as hard as we can to win every single game. But Oklahoma State lost its first Big 12 game of the season last year. They lost to Kansas, and then they ripped off something like 15 or 16 straight. So we'll see if they get off to a short slump again in Big 12 play this time, or with the home game, we'll see if the Cowgirls roll over the Red Raiders.
I'm looking forward to the end of Big 12 play, right, Sam? I mean,
Yeah,
Texas. Is it Texas and Oklahoma? What series do they end with? I mean, I know it's some big dogs.
It ends with Oklahoma. They'll play Texas, which is the projected to be the third best team in the Big 12, and then Oklahoma State's second, and then they're projected to play OU, which as of now has not lost, and they're winning games by ridiculous amount of margins. So, I mean, that's the elephant in the room that I should probably bring up with you is everyone thinks this team can get to Oklahoma City, but the Cowgirls have had huge troubles beating OU, and it could be like last year where both teams get to the Oklahoma City. But right now, OU is the team to beat in this league. For all the hype that Oklahoma State deservedly gets, the Sooners are so good right now. And Ben's absolutely right. The end of the season, the true barometer of can you be a championship caliber team? The Cowgirls won't have to get far in the postseason to do that. They have 3 games in Norman that they'll have the opportunity to do just that.
Well, I was going to ask because OSU, they have a rival across Oklahoma City, and that is OU, and that's a big dog in the softball world. Mm-hmm. And so I was going to ask what you guys thought heading into that, but you brought it up there. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be a couple challenges for this Cowgirl softball team, and I think. And do you guys think that this Cowgirl softball team is prepared to handle? You talked about the youth. You talked about how there's a spectrum of players on here. How do you think that will be handled early on?
From what I've seen, I think Oklahoma State will handle it well because the youth, the young players on this team, they don't look like youth, and that can be a trite expression. That can be cliche, but for me, I've seen it be the case. These young players, like Brianna Evans, who I talked about, she's one of the players everyone points to on the team as a leader, an absolute dog on this team who is doesn't feel like a freshman. It feels like she's more of a veteran. So I think the leadership of these players in particular, it really suits the Cowgirls well for a deeper run, for gritting out games. We've seen that in the non-conference play. I expect it to continue into conference play.
Well, there you have it. Cowgirl softball looking good right now, hoping to look good into the future. And guys, I really enjoyed it. It is quite an experience to look to both of your sides and see the same face both times. But I enjoyed it, and I'm thankful for you guys coming on.
Well, we appreciate you having us. And I speak for the both of us because I know Sam thinks the
Ben's
same
obligated to speak for me. Yeah. He's all right. He has that permission.
All right. Well, that's good to hear. Good to hear. Thank you guys for joining us on the Writing Room, and always take care and see you guys next time.
The hopes are when folks drink our water is that they'll drink it for a few days and find out the difference. They'll start feeling better because there's been no chemical in our water. There's a list of good things that we have. We don't have any bad things in it. I see the future of Divine Water as being worldwide, which will bring outside dollars into the state. It means a lot to me because I started it, I guess, and our family started it.